Welcome to the Listen for Life podcast with Genevieve Richardson. Genevieve is a speech-language pathologist rehabilitating adults with communication challenges after a stroke or due to a neurological impairment. Get equipped with knowledge from experts in the field and professionals you need to know. We'll hear stories and experiences from others who are navigating life with aphasia. So, put your earphones in and take a walk outside. This isn't just a podcast. This is a community, a resource, and a support system. We're in this together. Do life.
Miss Dana, Miss MedicareDana, thank you for joining me for the third time. You were the first three-peat on the Listen for Life Aphasia podcast. And it is so important for me to have you here because I work with Medicare subscribers, original Medicare subscribers, and you are in the business of Medicare. You are do we say certified Medicare insurance agent? How you tell us about you and give us your title.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. Third time is a charm, but I can come back fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh as much as we need to help get Medicare education out to everybody. I've never heard certified, but I think that sounds okay. I'm a licensed Medicare agent and broker. I help explain the Medicare program nationwide and help people get the coverage options that they need, explain the difference in the coverage options, get them signed up. Once you're a client of mine, as long as you stay with me, you're a client for life. I am very focused on education, as you are, which is why we do a lot together, because it's so important that people understand what medical coverage they can receive on Medicare, also what they're paying into, what potential gaps could be. So I do a lot of education on my website, MedicareDana.com, with videos that can help people all over the states watch, learn, write down notes, and really make sure people understand the programs that they're on so that they can plan financially. Because unfortunately, one medical incident without the proper coverage could bankrupt people. It could take someone's entire retirement savings and wash it. And we want to make sure that our seniors are protected and that the hard-earned money that they have been saving to have a beautiful retirement is used just for that, a beautiful retirement.
Love that. So you and I have known each other at least probably 2.5 years, 3 years. We're both here in Austin.
Yes, we are.
We met through mutual friends, and folks, it's been an amazing relationship. Dana's just one of these folks that I'm just so happy to have in my corner. Do I want to say it that way? Because we're both serving similar populations. And like you said, it's all about education and empowering people, giving them some control when it feels like I had a client say the other day, they went to Medicare.gov and they felt out of control. They felt like they didn't know what they were doing, what they were looking at. I guess it's laid out pretty well, but if you're already feeling overwhelmed, can put people right over the top.
Sure. I kind of think of it, I think of Medicare.gov like how I think of Home Depot, which for the people that understand Home Depot, they can go right into the aisle and they know exactly what to get. I'm not super handy. I don't know much about anything as it relates to projects. And I open the doors to Home Depot and I am so overwhelmed. I don't know where to go. Everything looks the same. And I usually if I go to Home Depot, I like to have someone that knows what they're talking about or find a Home Depot representative that can help guide me, because otherwise I'm spending hours looking at the same screw, not knowing what's what. And Medicare.gov has a lot of wonderful information, but a lot of times it's really hard to decipher which is particular for the need, where to find it. So you can kind of think of me like your Home Depot representative, where I can walk someone through, send them links, and then when they have questions, they don't have to go through it all over again and feel like they're a deer in headlights. They've got a point person who knows what's going on and can direct them to resources or just answer the questions for them.
So I wanted to jump into this. I've been collecting questions. So I've been asking my community. I put some posts on social media and then some other things that I've been thinking about as I have conversations, like when new potential clients come into my sphere, and we start talking about insurance, these are things that come up. So I thought we'd jump into some of these questions, and then at the end we'll wrap up, we'll cover anything else that we need to cover and just have a discussion. Sound good?
Sounds perfect.
All right. So we're going to start with John from Austin. Thank you, John, for your question. What's the difference between Medicare and Medicare Advantage? And how do I decide which one's right for me?
There are two ways to get Medicare coverage: original Medicare and the supplement plan, or a Medicare Advantage plan. And they're kind of like two different lanes under the umbrella of Medicare. Original Medicare and the supplement plan stays under the government umbrella, if we're looking at that. And by getting and staying within original Medicare and then the supplement plan, you can go to any doctor in the United States. You can travel. There's not a network of providers per se, like a PPO or HMO style. It's a full, anybody who is participating in original Medicare is covered. And it's standardized, which means in any state, the original Medicare and supplement plans have the exact same coverage and benefit. So if someone is on a G plan or an F plan or an N plan in any state, they have the exact same coverage and benefits. It's not renegotiated every year. It is the same plan year to year. So your benefits don't change, your coverage options don't change. The structure of the program is a little different. You're going to be paying a monthly flat fee each month, whether you use the plan or not. So you're paying on the front end, but then on the back end, if you do have a really large expense, you're typically not getting extra copays and deductibles with that. So you're paying on the front end to ensure on the back end, if there's a medical need, you have the coverage or you're capped at a certain point of paying out. With original Medicare and the supplement plan, when you're on original Medicare, you give your doctors two cards every time you see them: your red, white, and blue original Medicare card and your supplement card. Reason being is that red, white, and blue card, that's the original Medicare part. Medicare pays first. So it's kind of all about the payees when you're looking at the different programs as well. With original Medicare, the government, what you've paid into, they're paying first. And then your supplement plan, also called Medigap, is then taking the secondary, the gaps that Medicare doesn't cover, they're paying secondary. So you're staying within that government program, and original Medicare pays first, supplement plan pays second. Again, really, it's about having that flexibility and access to any doctor, any specialty. Also, with original Medicare and the supplement plan, you don't need prior authorizations or referrals. As long as it's medically necessary and falls under that Medicare program, you can get seen. With the Medicare Advantage plan, it's a completely different program. So it's really important for people to understand they are two totally different programs: how they're paid, how they're covered, and who has the control and access of the coverage and the treatment. The Medicare Advantage plan is actually going from that government control. That's taken away from the government. And now the private insurance carrier has control and they're coordinating all of the benefits. So when you are on a Medicare Advantage plan, you no longer need that red, white, and blue card. Many people put it in a safe because when you go to the doctor, you're only handing over that Medicare Advantage card because they are coordinating now your A and B and everything else in it. With the Medicare Advantage, you're no longer now under that kind of safeguard of the government, because now when you have bills, the government's not paying it. The government pays the insurance carrier for the Medicare Advantage and they have complete control. So with that said, one of the main differences is that every Medicare Advantage plan is going to be an HMO or a PPO style program, which means you need to stay within that service provider network. What that means is that you might not necessarily be able to go to any doctor, any specialist. There are prior authorizations as part of the Medicare Advantage program. There are referrals needed because it changes who the gatekeeper is. So the gatekeeper with Medicare Advantage is the insurance carrier, which they're the bank. So they're going to be the ones that decide what you can or can't have. Within that, there's also deductibles and copay. So typically the Medicare Advantage plans have zero or no monthly premium. So you aren't paying on the front end, but then you pay as you go and you're paying on the back end. Usually someone doesn't necessarily feel the hinges or the pain points of this unless they start having illnesses or needing treatments, because it's all about the mitigation of risk as well. If someone is really healthy on the Advantage plan, they're not paying for much because they're not seeing many doctors. Once you start seeing a lot of doctors, you as the consumer are the one that takes on the risk. And as you see, more doctors, you then have to pay those copays and those deductibles. It doesn't have the exact same coverages as original Medicare. And the Medicare Advantage plans, because they have these copays and deductibles and HMO and PPO, they're renegotiated every single year. So the other difference is that there's a time that you can make changes with those, and then you're locked in. So for the whole year, you're locked into that Medicare Advantage plan. You can make changes to original Medicare or to the supplement plan any time of year. However, one of the other big differences is medical underwriting. If someone wants to make a change and they're on a Medicare Advantage plan, if they want to switch back into original Medicare, there's one time of year and it's coming up. It's during the annual enrollment period. They can change, but now they have to undergo medical underwriting. The Medicare Advantage plans don't have medical underwriting. So someone can go into a Medicare Advantage plan without medical underwriting. This again falls to what I was explaining, which is the risk. When you're under original Medicare and the supplement, the government and then that insurance carrier is taking on the risk because you have that static monthly cost. And then you could have a $300,000 hospitalization. If you're on a G plan, there's a $240 annual deductible and you pay nothing else. If you're on an Advantage plan, you're not getting a medical underwriting because if you're sick, you're taking on the risk and you're paying with the copays and the deductibles. There are some other ancillary extras that the Advantage plans do offer. Many of them offer some dental, vision, and hearing coverage where original Medicare doesn't. You typically have to purchase a secondary policy for that. And Advantage plans have many times gym memberships included, and some have what's called over the counter. It's a gift card that you can purchase over the counter, non-medical, like medicine type thing. It's sometimes people enjoy having these services bundled. The Medicare Advantage plan also has drug plans involved. The one drug plan where original Medicare and the supplement, you get a standalone drug plan, which gives you some flexibility. If you have some higher end medications, you might need a different plan than somebody else, where the Advantage plans all have only one combined with them. So sometimes it's just looking at what makes the most sense for someone. There are people out there that say, I want insurance coverage, hoping I never need it. But if I need it, I want to be able to go to anyone that I need and have comprehensive services. And there's other people that say, I don't want to spend money until I need to, and I'll deal with it when I deal with it. So we've got a couple different, avenues when you're looking at them. But there are some very stark differences in the programs, in the accessibility, in the costs, and then in your ability to move back. So if someone is in an Advantage plan and has a health condition, they may never be able to switch out of it. And the deductibles on the Advantage plans in 2024, the highest was $12,000. The Advantage plans don't cover cancer in the same way as the supplement plans. You're responsible for 20% of any outpatient medication, so like a chemo or a dialysis. So someone who does have to endure some of that will have to pay 20% of that very expensive treatment, which many times you can hit that $12,000 deductible fast. But should somebody get diagnosed with cancer in August, hit their deductible in November, come January, your deductible starts again. So you could be looking at like $24,000 in the period of 6 months that you have to pay out of pocket. So little things like that. There's a lot more. I
Sure.
probably just went on a huge tangent too, but it's a very important. The point of this is it's very important to understand the differences and how it could affect you if you're healthy, but then how it could affect you if you're not, because all of our future planning is talking through, what can or can't happen. I do have a video on my website, MedicareDana.com, that really specifically talks about the differences between original Medicare and Medicare Advantage. I typically like people to watch that before they ever even decide or make a decision on which plan they want, so that they really understand what they're opting into and what they're opting out of, depending on the plan that they choose.
I want to give a summary of what I heard you say and what I understand because you and I, we've had hours of conversation and I've had hours of conversation with my current clients and previous clients. So, original Medicare, red, white, and blue card, and you usually have a supplement that gives you flexibility nationwide. So if you are a senior and you need to move states to be closer to family, you're not restricted. So with the original Medicare and supplement, original Medicare 80%, supplement picks up the 20%. You have that flexibility. You're not limited to your in network for where you physically, geographically live. I think another important point you brought up is this medical underwriting. I think a lot of people are like, "What? Like, what is that?" So I'm going to say it how I think I understand it, and you clear it up for us. If you have a stroke, obviously I'm in the aphasia arena. Stroke is often the primary cause. You have a stroke under Medicare. Medicare and the supplement are going to take care of it. But if you have a stroke under an Advantage plan, you're going to have those, you call it back end costs. You may not have that upfront monthly payment into the insurance, but you're likely going to be picking up much more of that hospital stay. You're going to have a higher deductible. So you're going to have those. But the medical underwriting part that I want the audience to understand, if you're on the Advantage plan and you've had a stroke, underwriting looks at what is your risk for more health events. If you've already had a stroke and you're on Advantage, you're not going to pass medical underwriting to go back to original Medicare. You've had a stroke, it's a major event, you're not going to pass it. And the converse is, if I got this right, Dana, if you're healthy on the Advantage plan during open enrollment period, you're more likely to pass the medical underwriting and could potentially move back to original Medicare. But it depends on your health and incident. That's my
Yes.
elementary. So clear it up for us.
No, that's a very good way to put it. And to not kind of alarm everybody, there
Right.
are certain set of underwriting questions. I mean, as we age, people have ailments and illnesses, and many of them pass medical underwriting. But if you have certain conditions like an active cancer, COPD, AFib, those are things that you'll always be declinable. If you're going through stroke, or when people see you post stroke and you're actually in treatment, you're also declinable. Because if you think about the mitigation of risk, I think it's best to think about cars and cars insurance and accidents. After you get into an accident, no insurance carrier is going to say, "Oh, yeah, let me take this on," right? You have to have insurance in place before, hoping you never get into an accident or you never have someone hit you or hit and run. But all that has to be in place before. Once you have the incident, once you get hit, once you've had the accident, you can't now look for insurance. You're on your own. It's very similar with our bodies and with the insurance companies looking at risk. It doesn't mean that it's a 100% always if someone is sick. There are certain things that, like I said, are just going to automatically be declinable. But then there are lists of questions, and every single insurance carrier has their own lists of medical underwriting. So some carriers might say you need to be clear of cancer for 2 years in order to get approved. Some might say 4. So why this is important is because you want to work with an independent Medicare agent. What that means is that that's an agent who is contracted with multiple different carriers. The importance of being contracted with multiple different carriers is they can say, oh, you have X going on. I know that Y company does not approve that, but Z company does. If you only work with what's called a captive agent, that means they only work for one company or they only represent one company. And they're then not going to be able to really offer you every option that you should. So that's something to think about. But when it comes to medical underwriting, like if you're seeing a patient already and they're in the middle of a treatment, insurance carriers are not going to take them on because they don't know if they are healed, if they're going to have another incident. If they're in the middle of a treatment, they want you to be totally done. What that means and what happens often, and I have a lot of clients like this, they might get in touch and say, I'm really struggling with my current insurance. I'd love to switch. I just had a knee replacement and I'm now going through physical therapy. So I might say finish physical therapy completely. Once you're done and everything looks good, we can then submit you because you're not actively undergoing a treatment. But someone that has a history of cancer, for example, when they're just getting started in the process of learning Medicare and choosing what is the most appropriate plan for them, it's going to be important for them to know, should this come up again, you might not be able to make a change. People might have only one opportunity to choose a lane, original Medicare or Medicare Advantage, and this becomes a really important conversation. Every agent should be talking to their beneficiaries about medical underwriting and how and when that could become effective. Some agents out there or some beneficiaries tell me that they're hearing people say you can change anytime that you want. That's not actually true in its fullest extent. If someone's saying that about an Advantage plan, you can't change anytime you want. You can only change during open enrollment, and you can only change to another Medicare Advantage plan if you have health risks. So there's all the little nuance and caveats that make this such an important educational piece and why we do these type of podcasts so that people start to really understand and ask the right questions or ask around to make sure that you're dealing with an agent that I would say is an independent agent because of what I had just explained. They can talk through multiple different options and carriers. It really specializes in Medicare. It also is a little bit unsettling when I hear that people are working with someone that might really specialize in another area of insurance and just dabble in Medicare because Medicare has so many nuances and so many rules based on different circumstances. And people are just not being given the full picture and not educated. And it only hurts them in the end.
It's a lot of good stuff. Let's go to our next question. It's slightly different, a little bit less in the weeds but I think it's necessary, even though that was a lot of information. I think you got to hear it multiple times because I remember the first time you started explaining it to me. I'm like, wait, what? Like, so I want people to take advantage of all the amazing videos and blog posts that you do have on your website. That's a good place to start. Replay this episode, get the transcript, follow along, so that you can educate yourself. Okay, let's pivot. I got a different question for you, Dana. I'm 64 and I'm planning to retire next year. What do I need to know about signing up for Medicare when I turn 65?
That Mary in Denver.
That's Mary.
All right, Mary, you need to know a couple things about turning 65. Number one, are you still working? And if you're still working, how large or small of a company do you work for? And are you on their group plan? All of that is going to be important to know whether or not you should enroll in Medicare, if you should enroll in Medicare Part A only or Part A and B. There's a lot of specific information around people that are continuing to work after age 65. So, Mary, if you are not working and you're on an individual plan and you're turning 65, then you would want to enroll in Medicare, and you're eligible to enroll in Medicare 3 months before your birth month, the month of your birth, and then the 3 months after. So, if Mary is on an individual insurance plan and turning 65, I would suggest enrolling the 3 months before. And how Medicare works is that as long as your birthday isn't the first of the month, so if it's the second of the month through the end, your Medicare becomes effective the first of the month of your birth. So my birthday is January 30th. My Medicare would start January 1st. If my birthday was January 1st, my Medicare would be effective December 1st. So people who are born on the first of the month have it a little bit different, but there is some confusion sometimes with people thinking, oh, my birthday is at the end of the month, so maybe it kicks in later. But I would say sign up for Medicare, both Part A and Part B, 3 months before your birthday, and it will start the first of the month. With that said, you want to talk with a Medicare agent, of course, because I usually like to talk to people when they're 64 and a half to make sure that they're on the right path. If they are working, maybe they don't need to sign up for Medicare, which we can get to in a moment, but give some time to understand what the process is. You can enroll online. There's really easy steps to enroll to get your Medicare. For someone who, if Mary was working and working for a large employer, and Medicare looks at 20 or more people as a large employer, and that's all because of who would pay first. So they would be creditable and they would be primary. And if you are working past the age of 65 with a group plan that has more than 20 people, according to the Medicare rules, you don't have to enroll in Medicare. So these type of people, what we do is called a cost benefit analysis. We will look at what your premiums are on your group plan, what it covers, how's your health, are you meeting your deductible every year? Does it make sense for you from a cost perspective and a medical coverage perspective to stay on your group plan? Or we look at the cost of Medicare and figure out if it makes more sense to transition into Medicare and off of your group plan. But with that said, we also have to look at, is there a spouse or a dependent child on your group plan? And if you leave, will it make your family now not have coverage? Because typically the person who's employed can only have their spouse or dependents get group medical benefits if they stay on the plan. So there's a lot that we look at in terms of whether or not it's a good decision to stay on your group plan or enroll in Medicare. For the people that are working with a large company, staying on that plan, we've done a cost benefit analysis, or they know for sure I'm staying on the plan. That's when you can look at enrolling in Part A only. Part A covers hospital benefits, and someone who's eligible has paid into it already when they turn 65. So it's not an additional monthly cost, which is why a lot of people will say, if you're delaying Part B, enroll in Part A because it's basically free insurance at this point. You've paid into it already and it's additional insurance. However, there's very specific rules about being enrolled in Part A and contributing to a health savings account, HSA. If someone's on a high deductible plan at their employer plan and contributing to an HSA, they cannot be enrolled in Part A at the same time. You cannot be enrolled in Medicare and contribute. And if you do, you'll get a tax penalty. So it's not always, oh, my neighbor said, my friend said I have to do this, because everyone's circumstance is different. And it's really why it's so important to talk to a Medicare expert. If you did enroll in Part A unknowingly, you're going to get a tax penalty. One other thing about Part A, and none of your listeners need to remember this completely, but what you want to remember is talk to a Medicare specialist. Before you do anything, talk to a Medicare specialist to make sure you're on the right path. You're doing things that aren't going to cause you penalties or monetary issues. And with Medicare, some of these penalties will be for life. But Medicare Part B is retroactive, which means if someone is over the age of 65 and then enrolling in Medicare at a later date because maybe they joined a group plan or, are with a company and on a group plan. And when they decide to enroll, that Part A is retroactive to 6 months prior. So if someone is contributing to an HSA and planning to retire, let's say at the end of the year and then enroll in Medicare, they have to stop contributing to their HSA 6 months before they're going to enroll in Medicare. Another reason to just make sure that you have a Medicare specialist that you're working with so that you can make sure these things are lined up. And there are so many people out there, and some people aren't as versed, I would say, in Medicare. Again, this goes to the point of why you want to work with someone who really knows the ins and outs so that they're telling you about this and that you can protect yourself and you know when to stop contributions, when to enroll, and everything that comes in between.
Glad I'm not glad I'm not there yet, Dana. But when I do get there, you're the one I'm calling.
You'll be ready though, because we'll be doing so many of these.
I'll like, woo, sign me up. I'll work for you. Okay, so let's see. I'm deciding where we're going next. Ooh, let's talk about prescription. I'm on several prescription medicines. How can I make sure that my Medicare plan covers all of them?
So, prescription medications, just in general, in the United States, is a really hot, sticky, kind of nasty topic. It's something that I'm actually part of the National Association of Insurance and Business Professionals, NABIP. We do a lot with Congress, we do a lot with lobbying and making sure that the changes that they're making affect the consumers where it's needed. Sometimes boots on the ground and the top dogs making decisions aren't lined. There's been a lot with the prescription drug world that we are constantly trying to make sure is seen, is understood when decisions are made, if they understand the gaps that are there. But as a whole in the United States, we really struggle with how expensive medications are. So the Part D prescription drug plan didn't come around until 2006. There's still a lot of improvements that need to be made with regard to how do I make sure that my medications are being covered. The best thing to do is go on Medicare.gov and put in your medications. There's a little area that says Part D, and you can put in all of your medications and have them run basically a list of what plans cover your meds at what costs. The thing is, it's a bit tricky. So I say that, but then I say it'd be really great if you had a Medicare agent who can walk your hand through this. But I don't want to just say that because it's not giving a resource. So really the resource that you can do at any time is go to Medicare.gov and look at your drug plan. I do have a video with step-by-step on my website of how to look up your prescription drug plans. The thing about the Part D program, kind of similar to the Medicare Advantage plan, because there are deductibles and copays, they are renegotiated every year and they're locked in. So when you do get out of the plan, you're stuck with that for the year, which we have tried to lobby with Congress to make one open enrollment drug period because some people have health conditions and, you know, they all of a sudden have a heart medication that now they need to take and it's not covered on their plan. And then you guys are in a bind with having that coverage. So we have lobbied for that and fought for it. It hasn't come through, but you are stuck within that 1 year of that particular plan. The thing about the prescription drug plans is every single drug plan is supposed to cover at least one medication in a class of medications. The other thing is there are a lot of other medication discount pharmacy type programs, like Clever RX is one. Many of those that if you can go on, if you can usually go online, you can look at a smartphone and just put Clever RX in and put your zip code in and the medication name, and it will show you all the pharmacies that it has at lower cost. You never have to use your Part D insurance if you find a discount pharmacy that you can get your medications at a lower rate. All you would do is show the pharmacy the coupon on your phone and have them use that to process your medication instead of having them go through your Part D. Unfortunately, though, Medicare does penalize people if they're not enrolled in a prescription
That's,
drug.
yeah,
So
that
for some
sucks.
people, they might have found on one of these discount pharmacies a way to get their medication at a much less expensive amount. And so they do that. But then they will find the lowest prescription drug plan to enroll in as a placeholder and also so that they don't get penalized. Because with this penalty, by not enrolling in a prescription drug plan, Medicare will charge you what's called an LEP, a late enrollment penalty, for the life of your time on Medicare. And they figure that out. They calculate that by how many months you were supposed to be on a prescription drug plan and not. So the longer you're not on a prescription drug plan, the higher your charge or the higher your penalty will be for life. People say, well, I don't need one. And you might not. But what happens is, what if in 10 years you have to get on a medication that is really expensive and the only way that you can get coverage is through the prescription drug plan? So those are the type of things that come up, and not everyone, it's not a cut and dry answer. It's as long as you know what the gaps are and what the issues might become. I've had clients that have come to me 10 years after being on Medicare with a different agent, and that agent never told them about the late enrollment penalty. And they said, I would have been on one. And now it's been 10 years and that late enrollment penalty is really high. So again, just reasons to really make sure that you are being aligned with people that know what they're talking about, that provide, I can provide a link to Medicare.gov for almost every single thing I talk about. It's all there. Like circling back to that conversation about Home Depot, it's just hard sometimes to find and to navigate. And so that's really important to be able to kind of provide evidence to what's being discussed.
Absolutely. And I just want to also bring back to one of your original points. You're in this business to preserve people's money. Let's
Right.
let's like a financial planner, right? We want you to keep your money and have your coverage and have the benefits that you need. So, love that. Let's shift again and talk about what in the world is open enrollment period. So James from Seattle, he's trying to plan ahead. What should he look for during Medicare's open enrollment period to make sure he has the right coverage?
A great question. So Medicare's annual open enrollment, AEP, is coming up. It's every year, October 15th through December 7th. This is specifically for Medicare Advantage and prescription drug plans because they have that lock-in period. So for Medicare Advantage plans, this is the one time of year people can make a change. People can change from Medicare Advantage to Medicare Advantage plan. So maybe someone's doctors fell out of the network, meaning they're no longer covered under that plan. Maybe they got a new doctor or they want to go to a specialist that was not part of that particular Medicare Advantage network and they want to be able to see that doctor. So they might look to change plans to have a wider network of doctors. So you can do that during open enrollment, or you can switch back into original Medicare. In order to do that, you have to pass medical underwriting, but that's the window. So I have had people call me throughout the year that say, I've been trying an Advantage plan. I don't love it. I'd really like to switch back. This is the time of year to do that. With the prescription drug plans, they change every single year as well. So we don't even know, they don't come publicized until October 1st, what the actual new plans are going to be. So we're all waiting. The plans change from year to year. So even if you're on one plan, you can't just assume that the same coverage, the same costs are going to be on that same plan the next year. Every person who's on a Medicare Advantage plan and every person who's on a prescription drug plan should get an annual notice of change in September. That's going to tell you the current plan that you're on, if there are any changes going into that next fiscal year. So this year, you're going to get an annual notice of change that's going to tell you if your Medicare Advantage plan remains the same, changes, or is potentially even discontinued for 2025. Same thing with the drug plans. You're going to get an annual notice of change that's going to tell you, did the premiums go up monthly? Are they still covering your medication? And they'll specifically tell you the medication you're on is not covered next year. Therefore, you need to look at those. You need to open your mail. I have a video on my YouTube, which, by the way, I also have all my videos on YouTube, that just really urges people to open their mail because you're missing really critical documents by not opening up your mail. But they will tell you whether or not your drugs are covered. This is so important because you only have one opportunity to make that change. So if you don't pay attention during open enrollment, if you don't even know open enrollment is going on, you can have two things happen. You can automatically get renewed into the same plan that you're on, but not realize that the premiums are increasing or that you might not have the same coverage. Or, and this is happening this year, a lot of Medicare Advantage plans are actually being discontinued. So if you're not noticing that you're getting a letter saying that your Advantage plan is being discontinued and you're assuming it's just going to roll over, you might not have coverage in 2025. Now, with all that said, the supplement plans aren't affected because they are standardized and they don't have a lock-in period. You can make a change for your supplement plans any day of the year. You'll have to pass medical underwriting, but there's not this specific time period that you can make a change. And most, if not all, most supplement plans are on an auto renewal. So as long as you're paying your premiums, you're good. You don't have to re-enroll or re-sign up for those supplements.
This specific topic reminds me of something that happened a couple of years ago. I was seeing a client under Medicare Part B, and they needed to sign up for a different Part D, the medicine plan. And the wife accidentally signed him up into an Advantage plan, like full stop, like into an Advantage plan. And it wasn't until my claims came back being rejected that we started digging into figuring out why that is.
Yeah.
And luckily, we were within 2 weeks of them being locked in for that Medicare Advantage plan. So luckily, we investigated it quick enough, presented the information, got them hooked up with an independent Medicare agent, and they were able to get it sorted.
What happens a lot that people also should be really cognizant of is, unfortunately, insurance carrier call centers are calling clients trying to switch them to a Medicare Advantage plan. And agents and brokerages and these call centers are really, really targeting seniors to try to switch you. And so it's really important to have a good relationship with your agent to ask about it. It's often that the senior or the beneficiary doesn't really understand what's happening. And then all of a sudden, they don't have the coverage and protection that they thought that they had. And you can't always get it back. This story is incredible because they were able to fix it. But had she waited too long, she would have been stuck in the Advantage plan and potentially never be able to get back because if they're seeing you, they've got some health issues.
So I've got a few more questions here, but I'm feeling like they are pretty redundant. So let's just do a little lightning round because I want to honor the people that have taken the time to submit a question. So even if we're repeating, we'll just have you give a quick response. Let's see, we did Mary. How about Carlos? And Carlos from Miami. My wife and I are both turning 65 next year. Do we need to sign up for Medicare at the same time, or do we do it separately?
This is a great question. So Medicare is tied to your Social Security number. So each of you have to enroll on your own. And if you both are born in the same month, then you'll have that same enrollment window 3 months before the month of your birthday and 3 months after. But you each need to do it individually.
Okay, great. Susan from Portland is curious. What happens if I miss my initial enrollment period for Medicare? Can I sign up later without a penalty?
Susan, great question. You can sign up during the general enrollment period, but you will have a penalty. And that enrollment period is only one time of year. So if you also miss that, you have to wait fully for the next enrollment to sign up for that.
Ooh.
And yeah, they penalize you and take your money for life.
Yeah, because they want you covered. They don't want anyone uninsured.
That's right.
You got to make a decision. You can't not make a decision unless you want penalties. I guess that is a decision, right? So if you neglect it or you don't open your mail, like you suggested a few minutes ago, and you don't make a decision, technically you are making a decision for penalties. David from Chicago. I've heard about Medigap plans, but I'm not sure if I need one. Can you explain what they cover and how they work with Medicare?
So, original Medicare has great coverage. Part A is hospital, Part B covers all of doctor's visits. Basically, anything outside of being admitted. And I think of it admitted when you're admitted to a hospital, when you're admitted to hospice, when you're admitted to home health care, it's your room and board. So, it's not all inclusive when you're admitted to these, but it covers that admission. Part B is everything else, everything outside of that room and board. With original Medicare, there's a $1,600 in 2024 hospital deductible that if you get hospitalized, you would pay that $1,600 and then original Medicare covers the rest. That's per occurrence within a 60-day time period. And on Part B, our original Medicare covers 80% of your outpatient facility. You would be responsible for 20%. So it's nice. There's some coverage, but there's no cap on that 20% of Part B. And I think that now almost everything is outpatient, knee replacements, things like that could be really expensive. It's never suggested to only have original Medicare, that A and B, because the financial risk is very large. So the government came up with this opportunity to purchase a secondary plan, which are Medigap or supplement. Those go hand in hand. If you think about original Medicare has gaps, so the Medigap plans are ones that cover those gaps. You can purchase that and they're under the exact same rules and guidelines, which is nationwide coverage. It travels with you. If it's covered under Medicare, it's covered under your Medigap policy, and you purchase that each month. There's a monthly cost for it, and then it covers those gaps. So that's what that Medigap is, and original Medicare coverages are. So that 20% that you would be responsible with Part B on original Medicare, the Medigap covers. The $1,600 deductible, the Medigap covers. So you don't have to pay that out of pocket.
Great. That was very clear. Linda from New York wonders, if I choose a Medicare Advantage plan, will I still be able to see my current doctors and specialists? Can you go over this real quick again?
Sure, Linda. So the Medicare Advantage plans are provider specific network. So anyone who is looking at a Medicare Advantage plan, you want to and need to make sure that your doctors are in that network. So if you're coming to a plan and you have specific doctors, you'd want to ask whoever you're working with. We would get your doctor information and then see what plans have those doctor facilities included. With the supplement plan, they usually have a wider network. The Advantage plan, it's more restricted. So you would definitely want to make sure if you have already doctor relationships in place as you're approaching Medicare, you're going to want to make sure if your decision is to go with an Advantage plan, that those doctors are in the Advantage plan's network.
Robert from Los Angeles is confused. How does Medicare work with my existing employer's health insurance if I'm still working when I turn 65? So give us a quick overview again on that, Dana.
So if you are working for a large employer company, you don't have to get Medicare because your employer medical group is going to pay primary and you can delay. If you're working for a small company, less than 20, you need to enroll in Medicare because what happens is that carrier is going to decline your claims because you're supposed to be on Medicare and it's all about who pays, and Medicare would pay first. So that's why it's really important to know if you have if you're working, if you have a company that has less than 20 employees or more than 20.
There is original Medicare, there's an upfront monthly cost just to have it and a deductible every year. Can you just go over those details a little bit?
So when you turn 65, or if you're working, if you're delaying Medicare, once you are enrolled in Medicare, your Part A and Part B is in good standing only if you're paying for it. So Part A, mentioned this earlier. If you are eligible for Medicare, Part A you've paid into already from your FICA taxes. There's not an additional monthly charge.
Okay.
Part B, there is an additional monthly charge, and you have to pay that regardless of whether you decide to go with a Medicare Advantage plan or a supplement plan. So that gets paid no matter what.
Wow, good point. So there is no free lunch, but keep going.
There is no free lunch. That is correct.
Okay.
So with original Medicare and then the supplement plan, you would pay a monthly additional cost for that Medigap or supplement plan. And depending on the policy that you get, you might only have a annual out of pocket spend of $240. And then that's it. That's your largest out of pocket deductible, so to speak. So you're paying, and it just depends on the state. Like in Texas, you can get that supplement plan, which is the G plan. It's the most comprehensive. You can get it for $100 a month, depending on your age and your zip code. So the insurance carriers look at age, zip code, gender, and tobacco use as their deciding factor. So you would pay a monthly cost. And then if you had a healthy year, you know exactly what you're spending. If you had an unhealthy year, it'd be that additional $240. With the Advantage plan, you still pay that Part B, but now you might pay $0 a month. However, as you go, if you have a healthy year, you'll pay nothing. If you have an unhealthy year, the Advantage plans in 2024 had the highest, they could go max for their deductible at $12,000. So you could potentially spend $12,000 a year on the deductible.
And talk about budgeting, right?
And you do need a budget for that. That's where you have to know where the pitfalls are in any insurance to understand if there was an incident, this is the money I would need to come up with.
Dana, you are amazing at what you do. You definitely feel the passion you have for it. You're looking out for this population, helping them navigate what could be a very tricky system to understanding the finances. But ultimately, you are there about empowering them, giving them some control, giving them choice. And you do that so graciously with your time and education. And folks, you need to check out MedicareDana.com. Super easy to find Medicare and then Dana.com. Tons of great videos and blogs. And like she said, she's on YouTube, Medicare Dana. You can find her there. And Dana, you can work with individuals across the United States.
I sure can. And thank you so much for all those kind words. Yes, I'm licensed nationwide and really do all of this over the phone and video. We make it really easy now. It's really nice. I mean, the pandemic didn't help us in many ways, but in some ways it really did help get people information that they need in a really quick way. So all the carriers now do everything with electronic signatures, and we can help people all across the United States.
Love that. Dana, thank you as always for coming up. Remind people one more time, open enrollment period is.
Yes, open enrollment is October 15th through December 7th.
Yep. So that's why we wanted to get this episode out to you all in September so you can be planning and thinking and making sure you're ready to make the decisions that you need to for your health.
Yes, I look forward to, oh, you're so welcome. I look forward to helping any of your community and everyone else in the community, like, share, comment. It's really all about making sure that people have information to make the most informed decision. And I am passionate about that and making sure that people who are getting a little bit marginalized. I think that this, the senior market has such a target on your back. And with AI and all of these other scams coming, we want to make sure that you are well equipped with information so that no one can take advantage of you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dana, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Listen for Life Aphasia podcast. We'll catch you on the flip side.
Thanks for tuning in to the Listen for Life podcast. We hope you feel empowered and supported. Head over to listenforlifepodcast.com to see the show notes with links and information from today's episode. Do you have a topic, a resource to share, or a guest recommendation? Inquiring minds want to know. Let us know in the comments section. Wishing you a fabulous week.